All right. Well, the flood of people transitioning over has slowed. So I think we're ready to start. So welcome to industry panel number one. AI is a daily work partner, and like all our other panels, feel free to put stuff in the chat. I will be moderating, so I will keep abreast of that. We are joined today by Alan Hauser, who is a senior solutions architect at Amexio. Susan Kelly, who's a senior manager of communications and engagement at Medidata, and Amanda Stockwell, who is the president and principal researcher of Stockwell Strategy and is also an adjunct associate professor at Duke University. So basically, these are folks that are in the private sector, and I thought it would be interesting for y'all to hear from those folks. Some of you guys are also in the private sector, right? But many of us are teachers. So my first question, just to kind of get us started here, is what is one thing that you do with AI that you didn't do a year ago? And whoever wants to go first, please jump in.
Okay.
How about you? Okay, go ahead, Amanda.
Okay, yeah,
all you.
Okay, all right. Well, I was going to say, so I had started to do this before, but I have completely transitioned. I pretty much don't make my own slide decks anymore. I let Gamma do it for me. I was very cautious when I first started with it. And I still have to edit a lot. I'm sure we'll talk about that. But between both any kind of slide deck, whether that's for class, for presentations, for talks, for anything, I pretty much don't make slides anymore by myself. Yeah. That's the big one for me.
Yeah, I think you converted me to Gamma too. I got sucked in, and now I don't make any other slides either.
I know, I should get a referral code for that.
You should.
Yeah, my answers were going to be more trite, half joking. Use it is so I used it. I did use it a year ago, but very little, and just with the increase in the quality of the AI platforms and discovering almost daily what they can do, what more they can do. It's now part of my daily work life. The other thing I do now that I did not do a year ago is ask it for personal advice as well as professional input. So, and yeah, it's pretty darn good in that department too.
Susan?
Yeah, so for me, when it comes to making slides, I'm a little bit more constrained because we have very specific company logos and branding, and we're a Gemini house, so everything goes through Nano Banana, Notebook LM, Google Gemini. So I have sort of mixed results with it. I use some aspects, but then I end up doing some cut and pasting, right? So we already have our templates in Google Slides. I'll generate some out, but I can't. Yeah, it's not there yet for me to be able to write a strong enough prompt that says using our company imprint and logo and colorways and all of that. I have to be far more specific. So I have a hybrid approach to it.
So let me ask a follow-up question for you all. As far as zooming in from just sort of random tasks, what would you say is the most impactful thing that you do? Maybe describe. Because we have three very different folks here, maybe describe what you do as a practitioner and then talk about one of the most impactful things that you use AI for within your specific wheelhouse.
Oh, wow. I'd love to start off with that one.
Sure.
So the company that I work for, Medidata, has data right in its name, right? So my particular pillar within the organization, we work with patient insights boards, site insights board, clinical trials boards, right? And so we ask them to give us input and feedback we conduct these design studios, which is something really familiar to anybody in UX, Amanda, but we host these with executives who run clinical trial sites and then with practitioners who run clinical trial sites. So we have volumes of transcripts, a lot more than I want to read through or my tiny brain can make sense of. So I bring those into a tool like Notebook LM and hundreds of pages of transcripts. And I ask for things like summaries, executive summaries, outputs, mind maps, you name it, all of the tools that they have available there. And then from that, I'm able to become the SME in whatever it is that they were discussing. And so I can take the output of a summary or a briefing report, and I have some very extensive prompts. I don't just say, please generate a summary. It's, persona, action, format, all of that. And then I'm able to take that huge volume of very technical knowledge and apply it in a commercial sense where if it makes sense to me from the NLM, I can make sense to customers and users. Yeah, that's my primary use case.
Alan, Amanda?
Go for it, Alan.
Go for it. Okay. We should be less cautious with each other.
I know.
Just jump in.
We need a hand signal or something.
Yes, there we go. So let's see. Two use cases for AI that I found to be very effective. It's really, really good at creating derivative content. So, example, I was in a meeting. Amexio is a professional services firm, so we're always responding, RFPs, always, building quotes, etc. And most RFPs are, they're different from every organization. So the questions fall into similar categories, but you have to handcraft pretty much every answer. So we were working on a proposal, rather complex proposal, and we were going to meet face to face with the prospect. And my boss said, this should be a slide deck for our meeting. Back up our meeting with a slide deck. And so what would have before AI got good, that would have triggered either an all-nighter or work well into the night. And I had, within 30 minutes, I had something that was really darn good, and met my boss's expectations and won over the prospect. So it's that one general bucket of use cases is doing things that you don't do on a regular basis. It really, now I'm the guy that can generate a slide deck in 30 minutes. And there are side effects from that, which we will get into. But I think that's a recent big use case. The other is, again, with RFPs, avoiding blank page syndrome or blank field syndrome. Give me an answer to start with, and so that my editing can start there instead of staring at a screen. How should I answer this question? So.
Amanda?
And then I'll add an additional flavor. So I will second both of those kind of use cases. I use them for similar things. And then a third one that is particular to my UX work. So I mostly do user research and product strategy with clients. And I am industry agnostic. So in the last, my last several projects have been a children's video game, a cryptocurrency company, and a state government. So like vastly, wildly different audiences, vastly, wildly different styles of communication among those different clients and that sort of thing. So one of the things that I will often do, I have a lot of templates for things like, writing my screeners or writing my research guides that I have reused for years. But now one thing that I will often do is, and I'm a Claude girly, Claude's my friend. Claude is, of all of the tools, I have found that it has learned my voice the best. It seems to have the most accurate information, and we'll talk about that too, I think. But I will do things like say, okay, I'm meeting with this new client and they are in this industry. Assume that you are, the VP of this department that I'm about to meet with. Sometimes I even feed it the LinkedIn profile of the specific person I'm going to be meeting with and say, if you were this person and you were hiring me for this thing, what questions might you ask me about this proposal? Or what feedback might you have, or might be, what else might be important to you about this research screener or this research plan or that kind of thing. So I use it to sort of proactively problem solve and try to appear smarter than I really am in front of my clients. The other thing that I will say, and this isn't particularly new for me, and there's not a specific workflow, but I especially like using Claude for editing content specifically for the purposes of making it shorter or longer or appropriate for different mediums, right? So, sort of to Alan's point, if I have, an article I wrote, it'll at least get a pretty good first crack at a social media post or a shorter form article for a different avenue or that kind of thing. So I always edit it again myself after it goes through, but it's really good at being like, okay, take this content and make that appropriate for a 500-word post or an article for this kind of publication or whatever.
All right, so I want to shift gears a little bit because we do have our first question from the audience. Again, if you have questions for the panelists, please drop them in the chat. So Anuj asks, for new hires at your organizations, what kind of AI literacy skills are becoming a mandatory requirement, if at all? Who wants to go first?
I'll be happy to go first again. Within our organization, we both provide training, but we also expect that you know how to write a good prompt, that you know how to explain what is in a good prompt. That's become part of our interview process, not just our new hires. And so you can get away with not knowing how to write a prompt specifically tailored to our industry, but if you have to know the basics of how to use the tool to begin with, because we can refine the rest, right? We get it. You might have come from a Copilot house, a Claude house, or whatever. So there are nuances there, but we definitely expect that those of you who are in content, like 10 years ago, everybody was calling themselves a content strategist because that was the new label to put on. So we're very cautious now about if you say like, I'm a prompt engineer, we're like, are you though? You really need to have some of those chops, and then we can build on that. We don't expect somebody brand new unless you're claiming that you're really good at it, in which case we're going to hold your feet to the fire. So everybody at this point should know how to write a good type prompt and what that means.
Yep, second that. I don't have direct experience with new hires at my organization, and AI actually may be so certainly writing prompts is the target skill that we need to learn to be effective and to maintain and increase our value to our organizations. There is the AI skepticism that you may face in your organization, especially if you're the first one on the bandwagon. And people's perceptions of AI are based on either media coverage or the last time they interacted with it. So if you tried Claude or ChatGPT a year or more ago, your experience is not what it is today. I think the stunning improvement, it knocks me out every time I encounter it. Like I happen to be ChatGPT, Team ChatGPT. Don't shame me, please. But ChatGPT knows that I'm a Data consultant. It knows that I work with XML. It knows I work with the Data Open Toolkit. It knows, in general terms, it knows my customers, and it knows the issues I've dealt with before. And it brings all that context into every conversation I have with ChatGPT. Now, just as the words came out of my mouth, conversation with ChatGPT, that's kind of a little weird, but maybe every session I have with ChatGPT is more appropriate. Being that leader in AI adoption, takes some effort, takes some, hand-holding, some demonstrations of what you can do, that's beyond knowing prompts and ensuring that your new hires know how to write prompts. I think that's basically assessing their AI tolerance and willingness to learn and try new things.
Yeah, and I will pick it up right there, which is to say that I don't have any specific AI requirements in my capacity at Stockwell Strategy. Mostly I end up working with subcontractors who have a set of skills that I either don't have or don't have time for, or like I need somebody to do something special. But I hire all the time through a nonprofit that I do some work with for startups. And one of the primary things that they say is that curiosity and willingness to learn, willingness to experiment, but being discerning about it and being able to speak a little bit to why you use different tools for what things. Don't just come in and tell me that you're a ChatGPT master. Tell me that you use, uh, Lovable for prototyping and, ChatGPT for editing and Gamma for presentations, whatever it is that you use, having a little bit of a toolkit already established and a little bit of personal experimentation and a little bit of perspective on this is why I like using this tool for this thing. I'm open to learn more, but I rely on this for these things and not just sort of blanket saying, yeah, I'm good at AI, because that actually is a little bit of a red flag to them. That means you probably actually don't. um, and I mean, there are, of course, some people who are AI experts. There are many more of us who are still getting up to speed, still learning, still experimenting. So I've seen the most success for in the hiring process where people are, kind of coming in and saying, I don't know everything. Here's what I've used. Here's what I've tried. Here's what I've learned along the way. Because especially with a lot of the groups that I work with who are startups, they know that things aren't going to be the same even for them in the next 3 months. So they need someone willing to experiment and try stuff out and but also being discerning about applying AI tools.
All right, our next question from the audience again is, what disruption have you seen in either hiring practices, numbers of opening, or hiring processes due to AI tools? And that is from Huiling.
Well, I can speak from the hiring side of things. It has gotten really easy to tell who has actually written their own stuff. Because while on the one hand, it's really helpful to be able to use AI to improve your resume or to improve your portfolio or whatever it is, I want to hire a human. And the people that I work with want to talk to a human. And so I would much, much rather see a resume that is maybe even a little bit unpolished or isn't quite the right fit, but that clearly is a person with like a personality. And I will also say, and again, most of my work in this space is with startups, so it's a potentially a little bit different personality than some places, but yeah, showing a little bit more personality is what is getting people to stand out, because otherwise, with some of the more traditional recruiting routes, people are getting literally tens of thousands of extremely, extremely similar resumes or extremely, extremely similar responses. And it is, while I have so much empathy and sympathy for the people looking, I also have a lot of empathy and sympathy for the people who are on the receiving end of 10,000 nearly identical resumes. And so just that volume has made it such that I almost see there's a little bit of the it's not even like pendulum swing. It's like the pendulum went up and around and turned over, and is like the more human you can be from a applicant perspective, the more likely you are to stand out.
I can't speak so much to the hiring side, so that's good. I can kind of level you out there. What I can talk about is my organization is huge. We are a global organization with nearly 20,000 employees. And just last year, we went through some growing pains, right? We had some reduction in force. And I know that there's a lot of folks want to look at something like that and be like, oh, that's because the C-suite thinks that everybody can be replaced by AI. No, that's not the case. But our staff, our C-suite, all the way down, does expect, to Alan's point, that if you are not continuously learning how to use the AI tools we have, and you're not willing to go along with it, if you're a Luddite when it comes to this, there's not going to be room for you in the information economy. it's here to stay. And all the people who were just like, oh, I don't want to use it because, we're like, I know you don't want to, but it's your job. So in that regard, we have seen a shift of like the question about new hires. Like, people coming on board need to already be native to AI and understand, even if they haven't mastered the capabilities, you need to understand and be willing to follow that learning curve because it's here. So in that regard, jobs have shifted from, I could go ahead and say I'm an excellent copywriter, and I am, but I have to show that I'm an excellent copywriter who knows how to use AI, bring in human in the loop, and produce things faster, more efficiently, more on brand, and understand the learning of the AI tools. I mean, like, sure, after I write 20 prompts, it knows what kind of output I like and what I don't like. You no longer get to stand on I'm an excellent copywriter.
Yep.
That's the biggest shift in our industry. Is like, get on the bus or get out of the way.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I don't have personal experience with hiring, but like sharing one professional side effect of being the AI expert at your organization, you will get busier. Your workload will increase because people will come to you for things that you've been the miracle worker. Last week, I'd never done an Excel pivot table, and we needed data to support a customer request, and I had it down in 30 minutes, and just as you are augmenting what you can produce and the velocity with which you can produce it, you get a reputation, and people come to you for similar miracles. So I hope it levels out a little bit as AI expertise becomes more widespread, but it was a surprising side effect to me. I'm not saving time for myself. I'm making myself busier.
Yeah. All right. Next question.
Job security, Alan.
Yeah. Well, yes, I hope so.
Yeah. This is a typical, I will just say, Bremen Vance question, so take that as you will. I'm just going to read it. In your organizations, how are people thinking about professional development and training? How much self-directed discovery is expected versus the sharing of standard practices? So good luck with that. Basically, how much, I think, are people allowed to experiment, and how much are they told what they need to do with AI?
That's a great question, and thank you, Giuseppe, for the paraphrase, because the academic speak. Bremen's great.
I know you guys.
But I was like, okay, I know what each of those words means individually. So I work for a small organ. Actually, it's a mid-sized professional services firm, 900 people, but it's European based. And I was hired in part to grow the US based business. We have almost a startup mentality, which I just love. And so with small organizations, you don't have a lot of policies and procedures and protocols. And the ones, I hope nobody from my company is listening, but the policies and procedures exist across the pond in Europe. We could be selective about which ones we adhere to and how strictly. So I tend to be entrepreneurial at heart, and I'm a big fan of asking for forgiveness instead of permission. And I sort of just, when I did not see my organization moving with the velocity I'd hoped for, I just took it on myself to buy my own AI subscription and start seeing what I could do with it. I should have mentioned, I also teach, I'm an adjunct instructor at Carnegie Mellon. Yeah. So some of what I say here will, we may shift into, academic mode as well for some of those insights.
And Susan?
Yeah, well, I can say so because I work with different clients all the time. I have observed that people have vastly different expectations across their organizations. I think as a very broad generalization, larger companies tend to have, in some ways, gotten a little bit further in terms of like restrictions of like, you can only use our version of ChatGPT or our version of Copilot or whatever. But then after they have defined tools, there's lots and lots of experimentation that I've observed, at least with the kinds of companies who are hiring for UX research and product strategy. I think that at the smaller organizations I've worked with, it's pretty much a free for all of you are strongly encouraged to experiment, but part of the experimentation then is also reporting back to the rest of the team about what's working and what's not. And so also to kind of layer on the conversation about what Ellen was saying with adding work, there is an element of doing the thing and figuring it out, but then also bringing that back to the rest of the team and helping everybody else learn from what you've experimented or what you've tried. And so I think, though, that I don't think there's much standardization, at least that I've observed across lots of different clients.
Yeah. So for us, and this, I guess, is the benefit of being, a global tech company with more resources than might be out there for some smaller places. My answer is kind of bifurcated because, first of all, I work in the clinical trials atmosphere, right? So we have patient health information. We have all the stuff that you don't want to be leaked out that would be illegal and unethical for us to use in our systems. So very early on, and we are an AI company. We use AI for our predictive analytics, not just for generative AI. So we clamped down at the very beginning and said, okay, everyone in the company needs to know and learn the rules, the ethics, the boundaries, what can you put in, what can't you put in. And we have an enterprise instance, so our Google Gemini is closed to us. It does not feed, it feeds in, not out. But still, we had to train everyone. So we actually have a program within the company called AI Change Agents. And every 6 months we rotate through, each department has a representative that goes to like this bigger learning, and we're learning every month. We have a session, and then at the 6-month mark, it changes and updates with any new tools and things. So we have this combination of like, go learn your stuff, but also you need to know the rules of the road, because if we screw up, you cannot put patient identifying information into any LM. Don't care how closed it is, right? So we give those ethical rules around it. On the flip side of that, we do provide this super new, powerful, amazing, up-to-date instance of Gemini. And we're like, hey, if you want to use our work one that we're paying $1 bajillion for to write your training plan, your diet, your shopping list, you go right ahead. Put everything you want in there. Just don't take any patient health information and put it in there. So we do create those rules, but then we also say, please have a playground. Learn more about how to use it by asking it to write your babysitter list or write an invitation dynamic pentameter. We're like, go ahead, bring that in. You just can't move it out. Yeah. So we're pretty rigid in our training.
So next question, and I'll add a little bit to it. I think it's a really good question. What the question is, what risks do you face using AI, in your workplace? And then I'll ask a follow-up. How have you been able to mitigate those risks? I mean, you just mentioned an important one, Susan, which is privacy. Yeah, how do you mitigate that?
Well, I think I'll talk about a little bit more mundane risk when it comes to the output, right? Because with a certain amount of confidence or maybe hubris, I used our Gemini tool the other day, and I just asked it about it was generating a short article for me. And I was like, I don't have time to do this. I don't want to go to all the places to get the information. So I asked it, and it was about corporate and social responsibility. And so I was just like, all right, what are our newest initiatives and blah, blah, blah. It was very fuzzy, more, right? And it gave me the content back, and I handed it over to our director of corporate responsibility and said, like, I proofread it for, spelling errors and syntax and things. And then I handed it off to her, and she said, this all looks great, except that partnership that you are giving credit for 2025, we ended that partnership before 2026, and they now work with our competitor. And I was like, well, crap, but it's digging from within our own system. So the information was almost right. So you run the risk of, even in a closed system, I will always proselytize that you have to maintain that human in the loop, because it wasn't wrong in that sense. It just was inaccurate. Right? If that makes sense, that hair splitting. Yeah.
Yeah. Plus one to that. Keep a human in the loop, because I don't know how much technical expertise or background you all have, but the thing about all of these LLMs is that they are designed to sound confident. They sound right on purpose. And you can be, to Susan's point, 99.5% correct, or correct 3 months ago, correct, whatever.
Right.
And I think that one of the dangers of this, especially if you are someone like me who is constantly getting involved with a new client and potentially a new industry, and you're trying to learn like context information or doing secondary research. I mean, it's not so different than the general internet in that you have to be careful, but you have to be more careful because if you ask a generative AI some background questions, it will very confidently give you a almost correct answer, and it is really easy to make yourself look really dumb, especially in that sort of like background information, secondary research, like industry research kind of type of workflow.
Okay, and I have nothing to augment what Susan and Amanda said, other than total agreement.
Great. So this is a comment in the chat, not a question, but I'm just going to read it. Our entire TechCom team was let go except for myself and one other on this call. Overnight, my lead job changed to self-directed discovery with some light handholding with regard to using Claude with various CLIs to analyze and summarize information in Jira and Slack, go through code and find or summarize answers about software changes, automate tasks, and create base data files that upload to a CCMS for further revision. So what is y'all? I mean, y'all have been in tech for a long time. I know each of you individually have. Are we seeing this level of disruption wide scale? The media is panicking. We have individual examples like this. Do you think that technical communicators are being replaced by AI?
Replaced, no, but there is growing turmoil in the labor market. Required skills are changing. The skills mix that companies think that they want is shifting, and that mix may be what they actually do need. And I think it's going to be an interesting couple of years as we see the benefits of the AI and some of the disruptions. And I think several of us on this, in this session and on the panel, are old enough to experience past economic downturns, and we know it's going to happen again. It's just a matter of when. We may be in one now. So that's my rambling answer to to where we are.
I had even commented on that comment that I would like to take a whack, if you will. My short answer is your executives screwed up, and they will figure it out painfully within the next couple of years. Because the amount of work that we are expected to do, the amount of output that is expected to be top notch, the speed at which our business is moving is not conducive to whacking off half of your workforce, leaving one or two people. That'll work for a little while. But my metaphor for this, right, is that absolutely the bicycle was going to replace walking, and then the train was going to replace bicycling or cart, right? And the car was going to replace the train, and the plane was going to lo and behold, we've got them all, right? You can take a plane, a train, an automobile, a bicycle, all of those things, and they all have to work in a certain synergy together. Trains did not replace bicycles, and AI is not going to replace technical writers, but you might have to learn how to ride a bike and how to buy a train ticket.
Yeah, I love that analogy, and I will throw in there that I have already started to observe a couple of organizations who made a not very smart choice and let go of a bunch of people, and now are like, I wonder why that thing isn't good. I wonder why no one's using that product. I wonder why no one came to that event. I wonder why no one's reading our content. And I do think that I would be remiss to say that there's not a lot of other factors in the economy right now that are making leaders nervous. But I think specifically about AI replacing people, I think Susan is spot on. And I don't think it's going to replace people completely, but I think we are all going to need to continue expanding our skill sets and learning how to appropriately integrate tools into our existing workflows and patterns, and being a little bit discerning about that. And that may mean that teams are slightly smaller, but it also may mean that there are new teams whose job is to, review the output of things or something like that. So I have long-term hope. Just I think that I think the key point there is to like think of yourself as starting from a foundation and expanding rather than fully pivoting.
Yep. Yep. All right. So I warned you about this before the panel started. So I asked you all, and again, you probably don't remember this because this was like a month and a half ago, but I asked you all what your spiciest take was on AI. So now I'm going to ask that in front of these fine folks. What is your spiciest, sort of most out there, however you want to interpret this question, take on AI? Go.
I can jump. Oh, go ahead, Amanda.
No, go for it.
Okay, so I am curious about whether I occasionally hear about organizations that forbid the use of AI that still have that policy, and also academic institutions like. Individual instructors tend to have a lot of autonomy at universities, so it's usually the individual instructor's preference. But I think forbidding students and forbidding workers from using AI is a little bit like forbidding forbidding engineers from using pocket calculators in the 1980s. Everybody had them. They weren't going away, and they were a force multiplier. They made you more effective. You could worry less about doing the math and worry more about doing the design. So my Carnegie Mellon class I mentioned, I allow and even encourage the use of AI. I have 3 conditions. One, that they tell me that they used AI. I asked this condition number 2 is that I asked that they share their prompts. I'm realizing that's a little bit obsolete because a year ago AI was transactional. You asked a question, you got an answer. Now you have a session. So I think asking for one's prompts is a little bit more tedious than it was. And then third requirement, of course, is that what they hand in has to meet the requirements of the course. They have to understand the concepts and apply the principles. So yeah, I encourage the use of AI, and I think any organization or instructor that forbids it should reconsider.
Susan or Amanda?
I agree with all of that, but I have a different hot take because I remember you asking me this question because it actually came up in conversation with a friend yesterday, and I was like, I'm going to bring this up. I think that vibe coding is awesome for prototyping and awful for actual coding. And that's maybe actually not that hot of a hot take, but that friend runs a data company who has already had several emergency client contacts because someone on their team vibe coded something, put it out into production, and then lo and behold, it failed in production. And then they were panicking and they didn't even know what had gone wrong because they had someone who wasn't really that good at coding changing their production code base. So I think that vibe coding is awesome for making something tangible and getting feedback on something. And, I think that it speeds up the process from getting from idea to concept and getting feedback on it. But I really do not buy into this whole vibe coding is going to replace engineers. I really do not buy into this whole vibe coding is going to allow a bunch of non-technical people to suddenly start software companies. Or maybe they'll start them and they will not last very long because then they will implode when they are live. And so that might not be that hot of a take anymore because I think we're already starting to see some of the backlash. But when you first asked me that question, it was kind of right at the height of the like, everybody vibe code, everyone can be a founder now, everyone should build things. And I am all for experimentation, but I can pretty much guarantee you that you're going to run into a problem that you cannot fix if you are not actually proficient with coding and rely on vibe coding. That's
I am going to pile on here, right? And I love it. In fact, Amanda, that you had said, like, you need to, I can't remember exactly how you said it, but like you need to know how to code in order to vibe code, right? And I love that, Alan, you brought up a calculator, because just a couple years ago, I ran into I'm terrible at math. Terrible. It does not really make sense to me. I understand, but I mean, I understand, but I can't apply, right? And I ran into my third grade math teacher at like a community event. And I said, remember when you told me that I really had to memorize my multiplication tables because I wasn't going to have a calculator in my pocket all the time? And I was like, look, I don't actually need to know that in order to figure out 30% off a discount at the store. I can do this. But what I do need to know is what multiplication is. What is the principle behind it? What does it mean to divide something, right? I'm going to need to know not the basic rules of grammar. I'm going to need to know the upper level theory behind why do words work this way in this sequence. And somebody in the chat had said, like, what is this going to do to education? So my hot take on it is it's going to make it better, because what we're going to do is be able to move students of all levels over to saying, like, I don't care if you memorize what is 2 times 4, what is 7 times 8. It doesn't matter. I need you to understand multiplication. I need you to understand where to go to find answers. And then secondary to that, where to go to prove that those answers are right. They will have this nuanced approach to being like, I'm not just going to go to the Encyclopedia Britannica and assume that's okay. I'm going to go to that encyclopedia and this news source and that piece of literature, and they will have this critical thinking that we weren't required to have when we were younger. We were required to go to the encyclopedia and take it as gospel. So when I was teaching, I would tell my students, and these are grad students, I'd be like, Wikipedia doesn't suck. I know they told you that as an undergrad, but you go to Wikipedia as your diving board. Go there and figure out what people are saying about it and look at all the sources and then go to those sources and go further. So I think what we're about to do is create a culture of better thinkers, because they're like, I don't need to do the manual work. I can go over here and do the thinking work. And that was the whole point of AI. So I think it's a boon to education, not a detractor.
Great. Well, unfortunately, we are out of time, so we've got to transition to part 2, which is in a different link. But let's thank our brave souls here for giving us all these spicy takes and for answering these questions. Hopefully this was useful for everybody. But yeah, we are going to transition over. So there's another link. So I'm going to close this one and go back to the schedule and go to the other link and hear some more from our practitioner friends. Thanks.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you all.
Thanks
you for coming, and feel free to follow up and ask me questions if there was something you wanted to pick my brain about.